Good morning, and thanks for joining us. Again, I'm Adam Hillhouse, and this morning I'm lucky enough to be joined by Miss Liz Ogbu. Most recently, Liz was the Associate Design Director for San Francisco's influential design collective, Public Architecture. This fall, she's beginning a fellowship in residence at IDEO.org, a new nonprofit using design to impact the global social sector. Liz has been granted a senior fellowship to the Design Futures Council for noteworthy leadership in the advancement of the design profession. Liz, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and speaking with us this morning.
Well, thanks, Adam, for having me.
Well, just to start off, why don't you briefly explain a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, the work that you did with public architecture, and what you expect to be doing with your new position at IDEO.
Well, at Public, I essentially was the design director, so a lot of my work was helping to take Public's mission is how to use design and create social impact or social change around it. And so many of our projects that we did were prototypical solutions that were intended to respond to some social issue. And we were trying to shine the light of the profession on it and begin to also generate some new thinking around how to address those issues. And the idea was that would then be turned over, in a sense, to the rest of the profession to be able to take on those projects. And we also had a pro bono program called the 1%, where we mobilize designers to pledge a percentage of their time to pro bono service. And we have almost 1,000 firms that had pledged over 30,000 hours or 300,000 hours annually to work with nonprofits, which is great. And so in my capacity there, it was really trying to drive the energy around that, both in terms of the actual design projects, whether it was literally pen and paper or just bringing design strategy and thinking to some of these issues, and then also doing the advocacy end, which I think is sort of an unusual position for an architect, but really trying to bridge the conversation between not just here's the design, take it and run with it, but like actually advocating for an issue. And sometimes even explaining to clients how they could use design to actually help them achieve their larger social goals. And so with IDEO, it's a similar thing. It broadens the type of design that I'll be doing because, as many people know, IDEO comes more from an industrial design background and has been entering the social entrepreneurship world through that way. So there will be a little bit more of that kind of work, and then also design strategy. And the canvas at which they're dealing with is much larger in terms of really around global impact. And the idea is that these fellows will actually really basically be thrown into the IDEO method and really learning the human-centered design method. And so through the course of, it's a year-long position, and through that course we're all supposed to be schooled basically in that and work on projects. And we all come from different backgrounds. So there's a mechanical engineer, a writer, industrial designer. So it's really taking all of those different backgrounds and bringing it together to try and come up with solutions or ways to drive social change through design.
Wow, that sounds like a really, really exciting opportunity, and I can see how it leads into your session for this fall's conference here in Colorado. Your session at this fall's conference is entitled Beyond Green, Redefining Sustainable Design. Can you briefly outline what our listeners might expect from your session this fall?
Yeah, sure. So basically, when we talk about sustainability, I think it's very easy that the default of what we think about is environmental sustainability, how to create greener buildings and make a lighter footprint on the earth, which is totally important. But I think it's also important to think of sustainability more broadly, triple bottom line in a sense, people, planet, profit. And I think that sometimes the people and profit part of it can be kind of scary to architecture because it's not as easy as like applying, a new energy system or reducing water use or using better materials. The stuff that's involved in that tends to be a little less tangible and harder to nail down in terms of the type of work that we as architects do. And so the session will basically talk about how to create projects that really look at all of those things, how a project can be economically pragmatic, socially responsible, and environmentally sustainable.
Great. Your session brief concludes with the following sentence. More than just green design, we can help construct a sustainable world that includes economic pragmatism and social justice. Can you quickly illustrate how you're attempting to broaden the sustainability conversation to include economic and social elements?
Sure. So I can explain a project that we actually worked on at Public Architecture. The last couple of years, we've been pursuing something called the Day Labor Station, which there are over 100,000 men and women who look for day labor work each day in the U.S., and over 75% of the sites that they do so at are informal sites, so street corners, gas stations, Home Depot parking lots, etc. And at many of these sites, there's generally no access to shelter, water, or toilets, which to us, just as designers, that was something we could immediately respond to. But then also, day labor work has become highly politicized because it's been linked with the immigration debate. So if you're angry about immigration and you can't go to the U.S.-Mexico border, you can go to your local day labor hiring site because there's almost one in every city. And so we were really interested in whether or not an act of architecture could actually engage this debate and advance the conversation above the rhetoric to actually creating something that would be meaningful both to the day laborers and to the actual community. And so we designed this structure, which we call the Day Labor Station, and the idea is it's a prototype made out of a kit of parts that could be deployed at any day labor hiring site and would be basically adapted to whatever the constraints of that site are. So if you have a large site and you need to serve a lot of workers, then you could create it in a particular way. If it was a smaller site, it could easily fit down to that. And so we really looked at the day laborers as our clients and tried to understand the way in which the day labor system operated in order to meet their needs. And so the resulting structure that we came out with is actually really fairly simple, but has a lot of green features to it, PV panels so it could exist off the grid, use billboard vinyl, which has waterproofing properties, but also saves something that would otherwise go to the landfill. But then it was also intended to be, economically pragmatic in the sense that we're providing something that actually could advance the day labor hiring process and hopefully enable them to better get jobs. And then it has little features like there's a kitchen that's sort of modeled off of a food truck where you could have an income-generating food business, and that could be something that could help sustain the station. And then socially, the idea was also that we were trying to change the way in which people view day laborers. I think, when somebody says day labor, you think of, that's that Mexican man standing on the corner and maybe slightly shifty. You don't know about them. And the truth of the matter is when you talk to them, a lot of what comes out of their mouth sounds like things that we associate with core American values, that they're here for a better life, a better chance for their kids. And, the truth of the matter is day labor work is actually really quite old in this country. They were the dock workers at the turn of the century, and it was always the new immigrants, and this was their entry point into the economy. But now, we've sort of lost that imagery, and we only think of these guys. And so by creating something that actually said we want to dignify them, and basically that it's not, these sites have been around 20 or 30 years. It's the only way in most cities that you actually know, you go to such and such street to actually find these guys. So to say that they're new and, need to leave is sort of a falsehood. So by dignifying them with an act of architecture, we actually hope to change the conversation and say, well, let's not discuss about day labor work based on sort of this false premise that it's a new thing, that these guys are crooks, but actually that they could be substantive and productive members of our community, and how do we integrate them into our community instead of pretending that they actually don't exist.
Sounds great. Liz, you really work on some amazing stuff. Where do you draw your inspiration from? What motivates you, and what are you really striving for in your current work?
I think I draw my inspiration from all over. I'm just really passionate about, wanting to make change. And in the absence of being a doctor who can go and save lives, I think architecture is my instrument. And so, however I can use that to actually improve the ways in which we relate to one another, that's kind of what drives me. And then I think I'm just also inspired by people out there that I see doing amazing stuff, like Majora Carter or Sam Mockbee is always a great person to look back to. So I think how I can just be another person participating in that change is what drives me from day to day.
Well, that's really exciting. Liz, we're running a little short on time, but if you had to narrow it down, is there one main idea that you hope our listeners would take away from your upcoming session?
I think really just how to think about sustainability more broadly, and then how I think sometimes as architects we think we don't have the power to make a lot of change, that we're kind of beholden to market pressures and the way that things have always been done. And I think I want to be able to show that actually, whether you're working for a nonprofit like I do or working within a traditional firm environment, you do have the power to actually influence things to be different and to be better, and that sustainability offers one tool to do that.
Great. Well, you really got me excited today. I'm motivated to go try something spectacular. So I really do appreciate your time this morning, Liz, and I'll look forward to your session at this fall's conference.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks. Good to you. Bye.
Bye.